Hey everybody, this is Rob Archangel, and today I'm going to be reviewing Radical Frugality, Living in America on $8,000 a Year by Nick Adams. I found this book, maybe close to a year ago, and it reminded me of Early Retirement Extreme. The author of that one, I believe, was Jacob Lund Fisker, and I might give an interview, or rather a review, at some point of that book if I have a chance. But the author of that particular book, ERE, had a website associated with it and a number of people on a discussion board. And the essence of what he advocated was extraordinary thrift and reducing your expenses such that you'd be able to save 60 to 80% plus of your net income each year and be able to invest that money and then use all of those thrifty habits that you developed in order to live comfortably without relying on an external job as your income stream, but instead the proceeds from your investments. You would invest all of that money, that 60 to 80% or so of what you were earning, and live on $8,000 a year or $10,000 a year, or something in that range. Anyway, I read the title of this book and I was reminded of it and wanted to check it out. First impressions, I think it's a quite good book, actually. It's very thoughtful. It's not a short book. It's not long, but it does go into a fair bit of detail, which I appreciate. Many of the books that I read tend to be kind of short, pithy, and books that you can read in kind of an afternoon or a couple days' time. And this one is definitely a little bit more substantial. There are a number of concepts that they discuss. First is kind of the philosophy and getting your mindset right in order to approach this. And one of the big impediments for a lot of people is the chasing of status, the desire to acquire more material goods and possessions and experiences and live above your means as a way to signal something to other people. And so when conceptualizing how to live a radically frugal life, I think the author here would encourage you to rethink that and to be willing to differentiate yourself and not identify your ego with your belongings so much as other aspects of how you live. They point out, I keep saying they, I think this is actually written by a couple. I'm trying to remember the details. It's been a little while since I read it, but I think it was a couple that wrote this, so I'll continue saying they. They talk about other aspects to happiness, social connections, engagement with some sort of meaningful work, and so forth, and free time. Having the ability to determine for yourself without requirements of your economic situation, forcing you to use your time in certain ways. Anyway, one of the main points that they established this framework of determining your financial zone, and that starts at dead zone all the way up to golden zone. And dead zone is when your debt payments exceed your income, food, and housing costs, and no recovery is possible aside from bankruptcy or some windfall if you receive inheritance money or win the lotto or something. And then all the way up to golden zone when you have minimal expenses and self-determination without regard to cash flow. In other words, when you reach that point of ERE, as Jacob Lund Fisker would describe, your income is substantial enough and your expenses low enough that you don't have to worry greatly about whether you're going to be able to keep a roof over your head and go about your day-to-day life, keep food on the table, and so forth. And then in between all of that, you have green, neutral, yellow, orange, and red zones with varying degrees of economic certainty and uncertainty associated with each of those. The book also describes a number of places to consider living and determining whether or where and how you want to live. So, for example, being mindful of things like state income tax and sales tax that has a big impact on your day-to-day life. I think the book is very sharp and astute in pointing out that there are certain aspects of modern life that are essential at this point, so they don't advocate things like abstaining from having the internet or having a telephone or cell phone, but they do leave the question open as to whether you need things like a car, whether it makes sense to rent versus own a car, rent versus own an apartment, share an apartment, etc. Overall, quite a useful book, a number of actual examples of people's budgets and how to practically cut their budgets in realistic ways, in ways that allow them to still maintain a quality of life without having to sacrifice too much of that, and at the same time trim the fat pretty substantially. Another concept that Jacob Lund Fisker talks about is, in his book, running a tight ship. And what does that mean when you run a tight ship? Well, it means there are fewer leaks on your vessel. You don't have to worry about water getting in from your lifeboat if you have fewer leaks. If you have lots and lots of little leaks, then you're going to have to do a lot of frantic bucketing out of all the water that's rushing in. And so the metaphor there is the leaks are your expenses. If you can keep your expenses very low, you have a very tight ship, and you don't have to worry so much about bucketing out the water that's rushing in, which represents your income. You don't have to worry about doing lots and lots of things to earn plenty of income if you know that you're not going to be losing a lot of money. Anyway, worthwhile book. I enjoyed it, and you can find it on Amazon, I'm sure. Happy reading.